See if it's notifying people. I think we should be. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video on YouTube. Today, we're going to talk about the book that is now available, or at least the first part of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book, why I'm releasing it early for people, what it's covering, what's coming up for the book as well. And so if anybody has any questions about the book or even anything else, I'll do my best to answer those. But the book really is the foundational kind of stuff that you really need to understand if you've been learning English for a long time and still don't speak fluently. All right, well, nice to see people there. So I'll mention this probably a few times in the chat, but if you're excited to get in and start reading it, you can just click on the link in the description below this video. It's called The Strangest Fluency Secret, and you can learn more about what's available now. So this includes the introduction and the first 3 chapters, so those are now available. And the reason I'm releasing this in stages is because, number one, I don't really want to make people wait. I've been teaching the same way for 20 years, and I still haven't shown kind of all in one place exactly why I do what I do and how it works. And so that's why I'm writing the book. But I also want to make sure I'll give you this information as quickly as possible. And the second reason is because I want to make sure I get feedback from learners. So if people have questions or if anything is too complicated in the book, then I want to make sure I can get that feedback from people and update things in the book before I finish or have a final release. So the first version here, again, this is the introduction and the first 3 chapters, which you can get by clicking on the link in the description in this video. But again, let me know if you have any questions, and I'm really excited. Hopefully we get some good feedback from early readers. So if you'd like to be one of the first, please get the book, and you could start reading it today, really. Anyway, I think, let's see. All right, so we are working. Nice to see people here. George, Mike, Diana, Jolman, Karos, and Alexander. Mike, second, finally on time. Yes, actually, this is, I'm doing this video Friday rather than my usual Thursday, but I wanted to finish a little bit more about the book and make sure I had a good edition of it. So this is still a rough, it's a pretty final draft, I'd say. I think most people will really enjoy it. I've already shared it with some people, and they gave me really great feedback on it. They said it was really good, and it was exciting and inspiring for them. So I hope more people will enjoy the book as well and give me better feedback. But it's even missing things like, what are we missing? I don't know, like a nice layout, which I'd like to do. I'm usually very boring about the layout of things, and I don't care so much about like how they look. I care more about the information, but I'd like to do better for this book. But again, the first thing I want to do is make sure all the information itself works for people. So if you'd like to get the book, just click on the link in the description below this video. So let's talk about it. So first of all, I've been teaching here on YouTube for 15 years. Which sounds like a long time. I think YouTube has only been around since 2006, I think. But yeah, so it's been an interesting ride. And if you go back through my channel, even through the first few videos I made, I was using the same principles that I talk about in the book to help people learn. But I haven't really been able to explain it well, or at least all in one place. And that's why I wanted to write this book. So I thought the book was really the best way to take everything I've learned over 20 plus years of teaching, excuse me, and that's in addition to 15 years of failing with traditional methods as I tried to learn in various ways. So even when I was living in Japan for a year, I still didn't become a confident speaker. Like, not really at all. There were a few things I could say well, but most times I struggled to speak, and I really wanted to understand why that was. So the book actually tells the story of how this works. So the first part of the book, we're really trying to clear the playing field, trying to remove all the pieces and the clutter and the ideas that a lot of people have about what's actually required to become fluent. Because there are a lot of things you can do and a lot of things that people do in order to become fluent. But a lot of them, either they are unnecessary or they're not as necessary as you might think, or people are often just not doing them in the right way. So if you have any questions about the book or anything, I can explain a little bit more about it. But again, I just wanted to talk kind of briefly about the book, and then see if anybody has any questions, describe what's going on in the first couple of chapters, and then what we'll be talking about as I release the next few chapters. So right now, I'm still in the writing process. As I said, I've released the introduction and the first 3 chapters. And even just this part by itself will hopefully change a lot of people's ideas about how to learn and show them that the things they thought maybe they need to learn are not actually necessary. But then as we go through the book, I get more into detail about specific things that you should actually do. And so I walk you through the whole process. So it's from the beliefs and ideas people have about learning all the way through to specific things you should be learning. And it's really the book I wish I had when I first started learning, because lots of people will give ideas about how to learn. But when I was struggling to get fluent, I really asked lots of people, tried to get lots of information in the same way that you and many others are probably trying to learn, with lots of different methods, or trying to get many different YouTube videos or all kinds of things. But if you're still not speaking fluently, there's really one thing you're missing, and that's the thing that I'm talking about in the book. So hopefully people will enjoy it, and I look forward to getting people's feedback. So you just check a few more questions here. So here says, hi, I'm here. Here's here. I can't read the Korean, but I do actually have a story about Korean, me learning some Korean in the book, which I think people will enjoy. Maybe some of you might know this story, but I think a lot of people will not have heard this already, but I think you will enjoy it. It's first to watch live. I didn't know you do live streaming in the morning. Well, typically I do live streaming videos on Thursdays, but I wanted to take yesterday just to finish a little bit more, make sure that the book was looking good before I release it today. So again, today is the first day it's available. And you can click on the link in the description below this video to get the book and start reading it immediately. Anybody who purchases the book will get all of the chapters right now that are available, plus all the additional chapters. They will get the final edition, so every update of the book automatically. They will get the audiobook version when that's done as well. I might try to do something different with the audiobook. We'll see, but there should be an audiobook version along with it. But people will get that automatically as well. Abhijit says, good morning, India. Indian time, 6:11 a.m. Let's see. And we got the time and the weather report. All right, so let's talk about the first 3 chapters of the book and what we'll be covering in that one. So the introduction, as I mentioned, you get the introduction in the first 3 chapters immediately, and then the rest of the chapters. I think there will probably be 8 chapters in the book. I'm trying to keep it short, although, I don't know, maybe the whole thing will be like 100 pages or around that, something, I guess. But I wanted to keep it as short as possible. That way people could read it in one day or even an afternoon and know exactly what to do to get fluent. So I'm trying to take you through all of these insights and ways of learning that I've covered over many years and just put them all into one simple formula for you within the book. So the first chapter, let's see here. I think this marker is working. So the first chapter, let's see, we were talking about basically a better way or a better question. So I'm just going to put one up here. So chapter 1 is talking about a better question. That's the title of the chapter. And the basic idea for this chapter is I really wanted to highlight how there are people all over the world, including myself, for people who are trying to learn, trying to get fluent, but they're still struggling to speak. And so what typically happens for people trying to learn languages is we have beliefs about what's actually required. And so, for example, people think I got fluent because I'm married to a Japanese woman, where I actually became fluent even before I met my wife, and I explain more about that process in the book. But the thought may be that you have to live in an English-speaking country, that you have to speak every day, lots of things like that people believe about fluency, and especially if they think they have to speak but they're unable to speak, then that really creates a lot of problems for people. So we talk about that and how most people, myself included, were really focusing on methods, and then I decided to ask myself a different question. So instead of thinking about what method should I be using, there's a much better question I decided to ask. I didn't know it at the time, but it certainly became the right question to ask, and that changed everything for me. So that's what chapter 1 is talking about. Chapter 2 is what really... I should pull this up, make sure I know exactly. That's pretty funny. I'm like trying to remember the actual chapter titles of all the book. I've been so deep into the book. Let's see here. I'll pull this up. I just want to make sure I'm getting it exactly correct here. Yeah. And I had different ideas for titles for these, but the real reason I struggle to speak. So again, in chapter 1, we're talking about what are all these various methods that people might be using, and one of the biggest issues that I had is that there was really no way for me to evaluate methods before trying them. So I might hear about an approach, or you could watch a video or read a book or do all kinds of things in order to learn, but there was no way to really know what was going to help me unless I did it. And so that was a risk of time or money. And so instead of, again, thinking about what's like the best method, because I really had no way to evaluate that, I had a better question instead and start focusing on what's actually stopping me from speaking. And so the real reason I struggle to speak, I go deep into that in this chapter and figuring out exactly why I'm struggling. And these are the same kinds of things that other people also struggle with as well, because we all tend to have the same kinds of issues. And I talk a lot about that, sharing other learner stories as well in chapter 1. So in chapter 2, we're talking about the real reason I struggle to speak. And once we finally start understanding the reason for that, then we can start figuring out how to solve the problem. And that's where we talk about the strangest fluency secret in chapter 3. So the book is also telling my story of how I'm discovering these things and thinking about these ideas after many years of failing. And the strangest fluency secret, which you will learn about in the book, is really a different way of thinking about how fluency develops. And if you've been watching my channel for a long time, you've probably heard some of these ideas already. But again, the book is my first time that I've actually distilled all of these things into one place. So I'm very excited to share that. And so anybody who comes to me asking for questions now, I will just say, get the book. It's all in the book. It lays everything out. And so the strangest fluency secret, it's the opposite of how most people get fluent, and it's getting people fluent in a way where you actually feel comfortable. It's a way that actually works for people no matter where you live. I have some learners who follow me who live in English-speaking countries. They are surrounded by natives every day, so they have chances to speak, but many people do not. And they're often, I bet even in this video, you will see people in the chat looking for speaking people or speaking practice partners to communicate with. But I make the point in the book, and I make the point often, that you don't really need that. So the speaking actually comes later after you're really starting to understand the language. So the book, even these first 3 chapters, answer a lot of questions. Again, you can click on the link in the description below this video if you'd like to start learning with me and get the first part of the book and then all the other chapters after that. The link in the description also talks about the next chapters, so 4 through 8, which will be coming soon, and I'm working on those. Now that I've got the book available, I can continue working on the chapters, and I will just release them one at a time as they're finished. So my goal is to try to release one at least once a week, I think. So it should take me a little bit of time. The chapters are mostly written, so I have them outlined already. I already know what I'm talking about. But if I get good feedback from people, or people have questions as they read the first 3 chapters, or there are certain things they want to know about, then that will also help me figure out what I want to do for the next chapters. So it probably won't change very much, but we'll see. Most of the ideas in the book are things that I've been talking about on the channel for a long time. And so all of these live videos, it's been a way of me being able to help people learn, but also testing ideas and seeing if people understand things. But I think the book really puts everything together and makes it very clear. So let's see here if we missed anybody. Just went hello from Brampton. Nice to see you there. And CNC BMX. Hey man, what have you been up to? It's been a while since I've seen you. Well, come join the channel. So what have I been up to? I've been up to writing this book, and I'm in the middle of writing it, but again, I wanted to make sure I get it out to people as quickly as possible. People have been asking for it for a while, so now you can get into the book, start reading it. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. You can comment just on the page where the book is, in our members area, specifically for early readers of the book, or you can even just reply or send me an email and let me know, or even put a comment below this video about whether you enjoyed the first 3 chapters or not. But I think people will, especially if you've been learning for a while and you're still struggling to speak. Alicia says, or Alicia, excuse me, good morning from Nepal. And Nils greets from Wisconsin, or greats. Greets. You mean greets, like G-R-E-E, like greetings, greetings from Wisconsin. Nice to see you there, Annette. So you were asking about the book. It is now available. You can click on the link in the description below this video to pick it up. I will hopefully, I want to release a physical copy of the book in the future. I don't know when I'm going to do that. The point, obviously, I must finish the first couple of chapters, make sure the whole book is looking good, and the audio book, that kind of thing. And it's a lot easier for people to get a digital version first, but I think some people enjoy reading physical books. I actually enjoy reading physical books as well. So I think, especially a book like this, you can carry it with you, and you will, I think I think it's an awesome book. And I mean, I worked on it for a long time. The history of it, it's something I thought about doing for quite a number of years, but really wanted to make sure I could explain everything well. And I don't know why it's taken me a long time to figure this out. Because again, I've been teaching the same way this whole time, but figuring out the best way to explain why I do what I do, I don't know, maybe it just took a long time, I guess. But anyway, I think people will really enjoy it, and it's very different from a typical kind of language learning book where you might get a bunch of phrases or something like that. This is really first teaching you how to think about language learning, and then it's teaching you how to learn. So you can apply the principles of the book and the specific strategies, and I go specifically into how I did it for learning Japanese, how I continue to learn, and how we can learn in a much more efficient way. We don't have to be native speakers in order to learn even faster than them. That's actually the title of Chapter 5, which is How to Learn Faster Than a Native. But again, if you'd like to know what's in these chapters as well as what's in the additional ones, you can click on the link in the description below this video. All right, let's see. Blanc says, thanks for the videos. It's my pleasure. Jess Winter says, I saw you first in 2018 in India, now in 2025 in Canada. Still feel great to see you. Well, thank you very much. That's great. Glad to hear that. You nailed it. Well, hopefully I did. I think the people I've been testing the book on so far, and a lot of the ideas, as I said, are things that I've been covering in YouTube videos. And so kind of little pieces of this and the general strategy. And I think it works really well as a story the way I've told it in the book. So most of the books that I personally enjoy, it's often teaching some kind of lesson, whether it's a fiction or a nonfiction book, but it's teaching some kind of lesson through a story. So I think people will probably enjoy that. And so I go back and forth kind of as a story, but explaining various lessons. And I think you'll enjoy it. You'll make it all out. I'll make it all out. Paper book is 1,000 times better than any kind of digital for mind. Well, yeah, I mean, paper books, there's something special about actually having a physical book there. I still read paper books. I'm not really a fan of reading, especially if I'm reading fiction. I can't really look at a digital e-reader. It's just not very comfortable for me to stare at the light like that. I understand the portability and the convenience of it. You can put 1,000 books on one little device, which is great. But unless, I think in the future, maybe if we have something that it feels more like a book, like a physical book, with even 2 pages on it, I think that would feel really cool if it would be possible to have something like that. Let's see, CNCBMX says, how long did it take you to do that? I mean, your book. Well, first of all, I'm still in the middle of writing it. I'm only through, the way I've done it so far is finish the introduction plus the first 3 chapters, and then I have 5 more chapters at least to go. It will probably be just 5, but we'll see. Maybe I get some deeper questions from learners that maybe people want to know, I don't know, about more things that I don't cover in the book, but I thought maybe people would want to know more about that. It really depends about what people are interested in. So as far as being able to speak and become fluent, that's the main focus of the book. So it's really for people. The main audience of the book is mostly people who watch my channel or other people who have been learning English for a long time and still can't speak. But English teachers will also benefit from it in the same way that many English teachers watch my YouTube videos to learn how to teach. And so the things that I think about or what I recommend, you'll actually understand the strategy. And I think people will, especially teachers, really enjoy this, having like a good way to think about this, because it will make their life a lot easier. It will show them how they can actually make learning a lot more fun and easy, and the teacher's job really becomes a lot more valuable when you can actually help people understand things well. So I don't want to explain too much because I cover this in the book, but again, I think teachers will enjoy it as well in the same way that many teachers enjoy my YouTube videos and other lessons here. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I don't think I finished that answer to that one. But as far as how long it took, since I'm still in the middle of it, I think it will probably be maybe another month, I think, to finish the whole thing. So my goal is to finish it by the end of July, just to make sure everybody gets all the chapters. And so maybe every week I should be releasing a new chapter from the book. Hopefully I can keep that pace. We'll see. Some things, they take longer to think about, but I've been working on the book for over, I don't know, like a year and a half, I think. So I started working on it and I didn't know exactly how to structure the book. And so it's been an interesting journey. If you want to know more about that, I can explain that. But I started thinking about should I explain it this way? And then I deleted all that, and then I tried a different way, and then deleted all that. And then I thought, okay, this is probably the best way to structure the book and the ideas that I needed to discover, because the book is really, it's trying to take people who have really been learning a lot, or studying a lot, or trying a lot of different things in order to learn, but still not speaking, in the same way that I was doing that. And the way that I got out of that process and actually started becoming fluent was, first I had to change what I thought about language learning. And so that's when the reason I talk about a better question. And the actual method itself is really quite simple. And the application can get very deep and complex and interesting. But the idea, it's really just 2 words. And I talk about this in the book as well. As we get through from talking about broader ideas to in chapters 5 and 6, where I'm talking about specific things you need to do, especially if you want to really understand the language and know how to use it. But I had to understand the real problems that I had with language learning, and these are a lot of the same problems that I find other people that I now help. They have these same problems as well. So it's been a long road. I wanted to, for many years, try to explain exactly how I do it. And if you go back through my channel, you'll see different explanations of what I do. I've been teaching, again, the same way this whole time, but trying to explain exactly why it works. So for example, years ago, how long ago was that? I forget. It's been a while, but I made a video called, what was that called? Get Fluent with One Trick, which was a very popular video for a time. I think it has 19 million views, something. And the basic idea of that is that you should be learning English like a native. But as I've refined my way of explaining this, and this is a bit more just background for people here, especially if you've been following my channel for a while. So it's correct to say that you should be learning more like a native, but that's not a very nuanced way of explaining it. And so I really wanted to take time in the book to explain what's actually useful, what you can do, and how you can actually get fluent faster than a native. And that's actually the title of chapter 5. But again, thinking about the ways that I've explained this, the physical writing of the book has been about 1.5 years, I guess. But yeah, it's been a long time, a longer time coming than that. But hopefully I can get it finished in the next month. That's the goal. All right, Naba says, can you please talk about TESOL and how to be an English trainer? Well, the book will cover this in a way, and it's more like a person who's trying to learn English will benefit in the same way that a person who's trying to teach English but doesn't know about these ideas, the way that I teach and helping people understand things, really feeling very confident about their language before they speak. So all these ideas, these are things that you can learn a lot, although thinking specifically about some how to be a specific like TESOL or whatever, some other test that you might be preparing people for or whatever, that would be beyond the scope of the book, because it's primarily, again, for people who already know a lot of the language, and it's again more for independent learners who really want to understand the best way to learn. Or at least what this is as an alternative to the typical way that people learn. Let's see. And then again, okay, got that one. So Alexander, thanks so much for the link, Drew. I'm looking forward to peeping into it after this video. Glad to hear it. I look forward to hearing lots of good feedback, or even bad feedback if you don't like it. Because again, it's a work in progress at the moment. I think you will. I think people will really enjoy the book. I think they will be surprised by it. And I think it will already start helping them think in different ways. And you can, again, even before the book is finished, you can start applying this. The first 3 chapters are really the kind of foundation of how you can change the way you think, so you start changing the way you speak. And Jess Winter says, sir, I met many British in Canada and feel really great and confidence while having conversation with them in English. Feel confident. Big thanks to you, sir. Glad to hear it. And again, talk about TESOL and how to be an English teacher. Can we be English teacher without university? That depends. Like as far as being able to teach, there is maybe a legal requirement. Like for example, people coming to Japan, like I did not have a teaching degree when I came out of college to come to Japan to help people teach English. But my job in the classroom was not. It's not like wasn't a very involved process. So we have a kind of team teaching process. This is what I was doing more when I came, and a lot of people who come to Japan to teach, and this is specifically for Japan. I don't know where you're from or where you would be teaching, but it was a team teaching thing. So you would have a Japanese teacher who was actually like a teacher, like a real teacher, and then us foreigners who would come to play games, and we would often just be able to give correct pronunciation and that kind of thing. So it depends on your situation, but there's a difference between getting a job for something versus actually just knowing how to teach. And so for me, even though I do not have a master's in education, a lot of people still come to me to help them learn because I know what I'm doing. I've actually demonstrated that I can help people learn. So again, like I'm not trying to get a job at a university, something like that. So if I were trying to do that, I would probably need maybe a teaching certificate or even a master's or something like that. It depends on the situation. Monica says, hello, teacher. Thank you for helping us to achieve our fluency in English. It's my pleasure. And CNC again, one of the videos that I liked so much was when you introduced your kid and you said, this is the new student, and I wouldn't trade for the world. I guess she is 12 years old now. She's not that old. Aria is now, how old is Aria? 9, but she will almost be 10 in August, so in 2 months. She will be 10 years old. But yes, so that's a video. I don't think my younger daughter has been in a YouTube video. I don't think so. But maybe in the future she will. Maybe they even become teachers. Who knows? But we'll see what happens with the channel. Just one question. Are you alone run this YouTube channel? Otherwise, you have whatever, you are perfect. Well, I mean, I have like a team of people, that help me do things. But as far as being able to make these videos, it's very easy for me to just do this by myself. I mean, even making a live video, I'm not doing any editing or anything like that. It's just turn on the camera like I'm doing today and talk about whatever I'm teaching or explaining for that video. And then that's all I have to do. So it's a pretty simple process, but yes, I do have people who help for various things like the development of the app or other things for helping with the website, other things like that. So I do have a team to help. Jess Winter again, so does it really matter having grammar mistakes while speaking English? Thanks for teaching. I guess it depends on the people you're speaking with. So some people maybe don't care about grammar errors, but other people do. And so typically the more important or the more professional the situation is, the more, I guess, the more important the correct grammar would be. So for me, if I was hiring someone for a job and they had lots of errors in their writing, I would probably not hire that person unless maybe that person is not specifically trying to, I don't know, trying to, I don't know, like they have nothing to do with communication or something like that. But typically, like good grammar is important. But even in just everyday speaking, there are some times where maybe perfect grammar isn't necessary. Even when I'm speaking in these videos, sometimes I use incorrect grammar. Like I say things like, I've given this example before. So there's 2 cups on the table. There's 2 cups on the table. This is grammatically incorrect, but lots of native speakers use this all the time. And then this is another thing I actually talk about later in the book, where we have people when you're trying to learn a language, native speakers will often just get lots of good examples of real spoken English, which is sometimes incorrect. But lots of people use it because it's just faster and easier. So instead, the correct speech would be there are 2 cups on the table. But there are is longer and it's a little more difficult to say. There's no way to contract there are. We don't say there. You could say that, there are 2 cups on the table, but it's just a lot smoother to say there's 2 cups on the table. So this is an example of where native speakers actually use incorrect grammar, or we blend things together, and this is a big difference between like how you might be learning things from a textbook, and although it's correct, native speakers might think it sounds a little too formal, or it wouldn't sound very natural in communication. So again, we talk about this idea of learning or thinking in a vacuum, like in a vacuum, just thinking about something by itself. So people ask a question like, what does this word mean? Or is grammar important, or whatever? And you're asking it kind of within this environment or this vacuum, as if nothing else is important or has some kind of impact on that. But in reality, the question is grammar important for what? So what situation? And that's another thing, again, I talk about in the book. And so I'm excited. I think I will actually get through the next couple of chapters quite quickly. I've already written them pretty thoroughly, but again, I want to make sure I write them well, and if there are any questions or feedback I get from learners, that I can start explaining things to people and make the book even better. But again, it depends on particular situations, and sometimes good grammar is valuable, sometimes it's not necessary, but it depends. And often when you're trying to learn to speak, the thing you should be paying attention to is connecting situations with vocabulary. We talk about this in chapter 6 of the book, and showing that transition from just learning maybe individual words and phrases or grammar points or something like that, to really seeing how everything integrates. And as you learn, that's one of the big things about learning like a native that anybody can do, and it's very easy to do so. All right, let's see. And Annette says, I downloaded it. I'm very excited. Thanks for that. It's my pleasure. Thank you for getting the book. All right, let's see. And Abhij says, you are not editing. That's why I told you you are perfect. Oh, okay, fantastic. Jolman says, I just bought the book. Thanks. Do I have to wait a lot to receive it in my email? Let me know if you don't. You should receive probably 2 emails. You should receive a welcome mail. And again, we just launched the book like today, like, I don't know, what is it, 30 minutes ago. So we will have, I want to make sure, I'll have to look to see if we're having any errors with the book or anything like that. But it should be, you should get 2 mails. The first one is a mail from me, like right after you purchase the book. And then the second email is the one you get for being able to log in. And I think Annette just said she was able to get access to the book, so hopefully you do. But send us an email at info@englishanyone.com if you do not receive the book, but hopefully you should, especially if you put in the correct email address after the purchase is made, making sure you're being able to get access. But yeah, let us know if you don't have any questions. When I get done with this video, I'll check with my staff, but I think people should be able to get both of those mails. Let me know if you do not. Jolman says, I just bought the book. Okay, I just answering that one. But thank you again. Glad to see people are excited to get the book. I know there are lots of books about fluency, and I looked at a couple of them even before looking at this, but because nobody has really solved the problem yet, I thought it was important for me to actually make this book. So even though, again, I've been, of course, and another nice thing about the book is there is no like fire siren or anything like an ambulance sound. I should put that in there I guess I could actually put that in the digital version of the book. So while you're reading it, you get a little like ambulance sound that comes in for the people who watch my live videos here. Let's see. Jess Winter says, sir, what is the easy meaning of delusion? All right, well, look it up and get lots of examples of it. That's the best thing I can tell you right now. Because one of the things, or one of the many things I talk about in the book is when you're asking for the meaning of a word, the meaning of a word doesn't really mean much without the situation you're using it in. All right, so we have let me make sure this fits over here. So we got the vocabulary, and we have the situation that you find the vocabulary in. And this is important, the relationship here, the connection between the vocabulary and the situation is so important because vocabulary can mean different things in different situations. So like a delusion, for example, I could be talking about a delusion like I believe something that actually isn't true. Like, wow, I think that like attractive woman over there is looking at me and she's kind of waving at me. And I'm like, well, women don't really wave at me very much. I don't know, but maybe she's waving at me and I get excited and I start waving back at her and like, ooh, you know. But then I look and behind me, she's actually just waving to her other friend over there. And so I feel very embarrassed about that and like, I was delusional. I was deluding myself that this woman was actually interested in me. So that's an example. But again, I'm connecting the vocabulary with a particular situation. So this is the same thing I also do when I'm talking with my children, and I talk about this in the book as well. So it will be covered, I think, in chapter 5. I think I'm talking about this specific idea of where you really want to make sure you're connecting vocabulary with situations. Maybe it's in chapter 6. I forget. I have to go back and look. But the basic idea, again, when my children ask me, what does a word mean? I say, well, where did you hear it? Or where did you read it? Where did you come? How did that word come into your mind? You know, like, because usually there's some kind of connection there. They're not just sitting and magically thinking up words and asking me what they mean. They're probably watching a movie, or they're trying to read a book, or they're doing something where the vocabulary isn't clear from the context. And so I've talked about examples of this. I give some more examples in the book, but remember that basic idea. So instead of just asking a teacher, hey, what does this word mean? We're really trying to get you to think like a native, which is when a native is wondering how something works, or like if you ask a native who's not a teacher, just a regular native speaker of English, hey, what does this word mean? They will immediately think, when do I use that? And so we want you to get that same kind of thinking as well, because we want you to be flexible, to really be spontaneous with the way you speak, to actually develop fluency by thinking like that. So if you just think about words by themselves, this is like the opposite of what I call magnetic vocabulary. I talk about this in the book as well. But magnetic vocabulary meaning you don't just know a word, but you know how that word connects to other words. And you also know how you might use that correctly in sentences. And as you get a bunch of these things together, they automatically know how to connect to each other without you thinking about it, because you've already made those connections and they're very strong. The vocabulary itself is really magnetic. So you're making these connections very easily rather than just here's a list of vocabulary and I'm not actually making any strong connections there. So that's another big part of the book. And I think a lot of people, especially more intelligent people who they think a lot about trying to learn as much vocabulary as possible, because often they think like I did. You know, I thought part of the reason I couldn't speak was I didn't know enough, when the actual problem was I just didn't know that vocabulary as well as I thought I did. And so this is a really important thing that a lot of people struggle with. And when I'm trying to explain it to people, I will say, oh, you understand something, but how well do you really understand it? Do you know it well enough to use it confidently in a conversation or not? And so having a list of vocabulary, like remembering the translation for a word like delusional or whatever, it's probably not going to be as magnetic, and that's not going to help you speak fluently. So if your goal is actually to communicate, to express yourself well, that's where we really start thinking about, okay, now like the vocabulary is actually something I understand extremely well. So I feel very confident about how it would work, how I might use it in particular situations, and often because I'm connecting, again, those situations with the vocabulary. So I'm spending a lot of time talking about this because it is a very important idea. Often people who are watching my videos, they already have a lot of vocabulary. They know a lot already, so the knowing more isn't really the problem. And that's why I talk about like the better question and what is the real reason I actually struggle to speak. And I think especially like chapters 2 and 3 will really make this clear for people, especially who understand a lot, because I answer that question there as well. Why do I understand so much but still struggle to speak? And you see people still making videos about this on YouTube. Like, we already know what the answer to this is. It's pretty obvious. But people, because it's such a common problem from them, or for many people, they try to know more words, but they don't know those words very well. All right, so there are different levels of this, and over the years I've tried to explain this in different ways. Like, typically there's a process that you go through when you're learning new vocabulary. So maybe the first time you hear something, you get exposed to the word. Maybe you don't know exactly what it means. Maybe you don't even hear it very clearly, but you're getting some kind of exposure to that. But over time, as you hear that word or see it used more, then you develop awareness. So this is where you really feel more confident about it. You understand it really well. You recognize it easily. But when you get to ownership, where you really know that word, you really feel confident about it, that's really where you feel certain and confident that you can use that vocabulary fluently. All right. And so most people, they don't get from that awareness level to ownership, because they're just thinking, like, I've learned the word, like I think I know it, and so they stop. And so this is probably the biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to learn. But I try not to talk about it as like a mistake, because often people just don't know what the real problem is. So if you think you need to know more words in order to speak, then you will continue to learn more and not really solve the problem. And so it will really be a frustrating situation for you. And this is where I was for many years, as I tried to learn different languages and still couldn't express myself. But hopefully that makes sense. So again, whenever you're thinking, what does this word mean? You should be thinking more like, maybe this word means something different in particular situations. I should get more examples of it. But as you get those examples, it will really help you understand that. Tarek New says, good morning, sir. The link to the book, you can find this in the description below this video. So it will take you to the page. You can learn more about what's in the book, what's included, what you get. And hopefully, if you were interested in that, you can purchase the book. It's very cheap. It's like $5. But again, you will go through the process. You will be one of the first to read it and the first to get new chapters as they're released. And please, please, please give me your feedback. Even if you think, Drew, I don't understand this, or Drew, this idea is awful or something, let me know. Because that will help me improve the book. So I really want to make sure people understand that. But that is the link to the book, which you can find in the description below this video. And Surin says, still have problems with jokes and idioms. You're asking me, still have problems with jokes and idioms, or you're telling me about yourself. If you're telling me that, then yes, that's probably a common thing that a lot of people experience. So a lot of people, again, they're learning typically the more textbook or formal language that you might learn from a teacher, rather than the things that natives are actually using in real conversations. And so again, it's a different world, the real situation versus the kinds of things that you would learn in a real situation. And I talk a lot about this in the book, and how you can actually go from learning the traditional way to learning in a way that actually helps you understand natives and really develop fluency. So I think it should be an exciting thing. So if you'd like to learn more about that, pick up the book. All right. Christian says, Drew, how can I get the book, please? So click on the link in the description below this video to get the book. So you can start reading it. The first, I think it's about, how long is it? I think I was so excited to just get it out. I didn't even put page numbers or like a cool, it's a very simple looking thing. If you just want the information, that's what you get. But I don't even have page numbers in it. But I think it's like 30 pages or something like that so far for the first couple of chapters. So click on the link below this video to get it. Bridget says, good morning. What is the basic step to speak like a native? Get the book. I promise you, you will understand that. And part of the reason that I had to write the book is because if I just tell you what to do, either you won't believe me or you probably wouldn't do it. and making sure like people go through the book, there really is a process where like I had to go through this myself of changing the way I think about learning, and that's what helped me change the way I do things, actually changing the way I'm learning. All right. So first I had to think about that. And I know a typical grammar textbook or whatever, they don't talk anything about this stuff, like all this like ideas or beliefs or whatever, but it's really important because if you don't change the way you think and you're still thinking in the same way and then you try to do what I recommend, it's not going to work very well. Again, people like really, if you've been trying for a long time to get fluent and you're still not speaking, it's probably because of things you're doing, because of the beliefs you have about learning. And it's not your fault. I make this point clear in the book, especially in the introduction and chapter 1, how it's how everybody is basically taught to learn languages. And this is not even just classrooms. I'm not picking on teachers in the book. I'm not even talking about how traditional lessons are necessarily bad. It's more about the way people think about how learning works. And language learning specifically, I also talk about this in the book. I keep mentioning this. There are a lot of ideas, and you'll see like it might seem like a pretty short book, but I try to pack a lot of information in there, and we go through the process quite quickly. But you can let me know as you go through it, like if the book is moving too fast or if it's going too slow or whatever. But again, these ideas are really important. So when you say, what is the most important thing? Like, you have to change how you learn because you've probably been learning in the traditional way or thinking in the traditional way about language learning for a long time. So if you'd like to learn more about that, click on the link in the description below the book or below the video and get the book. All right. What is that? Alexander, yes, there goes the siren again. Yes, I think it would be funny to have a little button in the book. I'll have to put maybe the digital version. I don't know if I can figure out some way to do that. But when I made a kind of digital book years ago that had videos in it, but I think that could be an interesting thing. Just put that siren sound for people who like that. And CNC says, I remember that I had a conversation with someone who was humming all the time. I can barely understand what he was saying. That happened when I use certain apps. That's interesting. Like humming? Like a humming sound or something? Good morning, Drew. Nice to see you there. I can't read the, I'm guessing that's Chinese. Let me know. Joe, I'm going to send the email info. I'm already in Fluent for Life program. Thanks. Glad to hear. Yes. So if you just purchased the book, if you're already in Fluent for Life, check your account. You should have access to it. But let us know if you do not. And Eunice says, hello, everyone. What are the languages you've learned so far, Drew? Well, just English and Japanese. And I'd like to learn more, but I think it was more important for me. I don't know, you can call it like a calling or something, but I thought it was a better use of my time to help other people understand how language learning works. Or at least, like, I say it's a good way to learn. It's an alternative to what people typically do. Although I think as the book becomes more popular, more people will start learning, and this will become the standard way people learn languages. I think that will happen. But I thought it was important to do that rather than take these ideas and start learning a bunch of other languages myself. I suppose I could do both, but I only have a certain number of hours in the day, and I've just been using my brain a lot writing all this. But I think it would be a lot of fun to learn more. So I'd like to learn some different kinds of languages, like learning Arabic, and I don't know, Thai or something like that. So things that have different writing styles as well. So it's easy to go from English to Spanish, for example, because the letters are the same for the most part. But again, like and also the pronunciation is quite similar. I can learn like television to like, visión or whatever instead of vision. But I think it would be fun to do that. George Chan says, please add your hand-drawn illustration in the book. I don't think there will be hand-drawn illustrations in the book, but there will be illustrations of more icons, kind of like what I do with Frederick. So it's more helping people understand how language learning works. And yes, my hand-drawn illustrations my hand-drawn illustrations are not the best, but you can actually, if you want to see some good drawings, well, I don't know, they're okay for what they are. But if you look up this book on Amazon or just search for it, so this is a book I wrote, Shabere Sensei's Alphabet. But if you look this up, it's a picture book I made. So if you want to see some drawings that are a little bit better than the typical stuff I do here. And again, the reason I draw badly is because I'm trying to be quick. I don't even my writing itself, this is not very good. I mean, imagine if the book had my handwriting in it rather than actual text from a computer. I think that would be, people would be very frustrated with that. So yes, it'd probably be not very useful, but we'll see. We'll see what people ask for. If everyone says, you know, Drew, I like regular computer print, but we'd rather have your handwriting for the book, then maybe I'll write it by hand. I'll see how that works. But again, I think, who was I asking? Jolman just responding to that. So if you already have an account and you purchase the book, you will see the book just added to your account. You probably will not get a welcome email about that. Eunice says, hi, Drew. Hi, hello, everyone. I read that already. Let's see. Tarek says, sure, I'll be happy to read and get back with you with my opinion about it. Thank you very much. So yes, again, this is the first 3 chapters along with the introduction for the book. The next 5 chapters at least will be coming out in order as I work on them. But I want to make sure if people have questions about this really is, especially these first 3 chapters, this is the foundation of how you need to think differently. And I'm really leading people through this step by step to make sure people can understand everything and that it makes sense for people. So I really want everyone to go through the book and think, wow, I actually understand how to learn much better now, and now I can make a lot more progress. All right, Just Winter said, sir, why I feel more confident speaking English with native speaker rather than non-native people. Thanks for replying. It depends on what the issue is, but I know, like, if I'm speaking with, let's say, a Japanese person, like a native Japanese speaker, then I'm probably less worried. I'm not really worried anyway, but I can imagine like being less worried about them judging my Japanese because they don't expect me to be perfect. But I would feel with another non-native speaker who already knows maybe they can speak Japanese quite well, there's a little bit of maybe competition there, like especially if like they have like a really good level and they're judging my ability to speak. So I would probably feel more nervous about that. So there are different reasons why people might, I don't know, it depends. You have to kind of listen to yourself in the situation and think about what might be causing that issue for people. But yeah, you have to kind of listen to these feelings, I guess, when you have them and think like, why might I be nervous around non-natives versus not being nervous around natives? But I think a lot of that comes from the expectation of how you can speak. Let's see. And then we have, let me know your name. If you've got your name in, or if you want me to know your name or not, just so I can be able to read it and say something here, because I can't read the Korean. Although, again, I do put a story about learning Korean in the book, which I think people will enjoy. Do you write down a new word when you learn new Japanese? And I think it's not easy to understand a new word 100% at once, despite Google. What do you do when you pick up a new word? As I mentioned before, the point is not to get just vocabulary by itself. It's not like, here's a word and then I don't know, like write it down in my phrase book or something like that. What I'm really trying to do is connect that vocabulary with the situation it came from, because vocabulary might have various meanings in different situations. And so I don't really care about the vocabulary itself. I care about how the vocabulary expresses a situation. or there's a certain meaning for a particular time or a particular place or something like that. So it's always the vocabulary with the situation. So if you're trying to just write something down, you could do this in a phrase book, but a better thing to do would be talking about where you found the vocabulary or what was happening, try to get a couple of different examples of it, but really connecting the vocabulary with that situation. And also knowing that the vocabulary might have other uses connected to other situations. So we might, for example, you might have a word like as, and if we just try to make a connection from this word in English to a translation in our native language, then we'll probably get stuck because as has a number of different uses, and we don't really think like computers where, okay, give me all the meanings of as or all the uses of it. So native speakers don't learn the vocabulary like this either. So I might give an example for my children, like this marker is as light as a feather, and that's one construction, one sentence that might use as part of that thing. But I also might say like I work as a teacher. I work as a teacher. So that's a different use of as. And so when we're talking about making like a phrase book, what we want to do is make this connection really strong. We want to make that vocabulary magnetic so that you really understand it well. Even if you only know one use of a word, that's fine if that connection is strong. Okay, so we got the vocabulary and then we've got the situation, and this is what we want to do instead of just trying to we'll put a T over here for a translation. So we don't want to just take a translation and learn something. The reason people use translations is typically because they don't really understand the vocabulary. And they don't really understand the vocabulary because they're not connecting it with situations. They just get some random word somewhere, like here it is in a textbook or a word list or something like that. And a definition of a word doesn't really mean anything. The important thing is, what does it mean in a situation? What does it mean when you use it? And that's where the magic comes from. And the magic meaning we can actually understand something, we get the meaning of it, we can really find out how people, like when do people really use this word and what do they mean in this situation? Okay, so try not to think about getting a word in a phrase book and just writing it down. Spend more time with the situation. Really understand what something means until you feel certain and confident about it. All right. It's another thing, again, especially people will start understanding this from the first 3 chapters. Chapter 4 really explains why this works. And chapter 5, we start getting into what exactly we do and how we start applying all these ideas. So I'd love to just explain this all very simply without having a book, because it takes a long time. It's a lot of effort to write a book. But I think it's necessary when people go through it. There's a lot of kind of clutter and beliefs and ideas about language learning that we have to clear away first. So we have to do a little bit of cleaning before, it's like I have this bottle of water here. And if I already have it all filled up with water, I can't put anything else into the bottle. So I got to get all this stuff out first. And then finally, when the bottle is clear, then I can start putting new things into it. So I know it seems like a little bit more work, but I promise you, when you go through the book, you will have that transformation. That's the whole point. It's not just to teach you a bunch of new words and phrases. It's to really help you have a transformation, like, I get it now. Now I understand why I was struggling before, what I should actually do to get fluent. And the process really becomes very simple and easy at that point. Excuse me. Let's see here, where did I go? And all right, CNC says, I'd like to add something. I was told that it's a good idea when one starts watching cartoons. However, it seems to me that it's easier to watch videos about real life. Yes, it depends on what you're interested in, what kind of language you're trying to learn. And this is another thing I talk about in the book. So you will hear this a lot. Like, I cover all these things, and I'm always glad to get these questions because it shows me that the things I'm talking about in the book are things that people care about, and I'm working on the right thing. So very good. Like, ask me more questions. I'll let you know if these things are covered. But yes, when I'm talking about in chapter 1 about what is the best way to learn. So most people begin with this, like, should I watch cartoons or should I watch, I don't know, like real life videos about whatever? And the question is not like one of them being better than the other. It's just what is appropriate for the situation. And it's really the same kind of thing like vocabulary and situations here. So if we have just learning random vocabulary, people ask me, hey, Drew, how many words do I need in order to speak? I say, well, in order to say what? What exactly do you want to say? And so there might be a bunch of words that you know that you rarely use. So is that vocabulary helpful? Is it a good idea to know that vocabulary if you don't use it? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It just depends on the situation. So yes, there can be specific things you use, like watching a cartoon versus watching things about real life. And the other part of that, also very important, is what do you care about? So if I'm trying to watch content that I don't like if I am trying to watch cooking shows to learn English, but I don't like cooking, I don't care about that, even if the content is helpful and it's teaching me things, I'm not going to learn as much. So you need to try to find the content you're interested in, but also things that are going to be helpful for you learning. So maybe some people enjoy cartoons more, maybe some people enjoy other content. It depends. It depends on also what cartoons you might be watching. So trying to think more in detail about that, and that's another thing that I do in the book. It's trying to really give learners the ability to kind of give yourself permission to learn in certain ways. So without me, for example, needing to ask a teacher, hey, is it okay if I learn in this way? And so chapter 4 is the most important question in language learning. And so that's where we talk about what's actually important for language learning when we're evaluating different methods. And I think people will really enjoy that chapter as well. But again, the point is not what method is right. It's what's actually helping you. And so even two people might, again, one person watches a cartoon and really enjoys it, really benefits from that, really learns a lot. Another person watches that same cartoon, but just doesn't get as much from it, and that happens. So don't worry about trying to ask teachers for permission or whether something actually works or not. You really want to make sure it's actually just appropriate for you. So Christian says, is the book available for those of us who are members of the Vault? I've done the book separately because I'm starting with having this kind of group of people who are helping me write it. So it's not included in the Vault, but it's only $5. So if you enjoy what you're learning in the Vault, and also you want to learn more about why all of that lesson, the format and the content works, you can get the book. But maybe some people who are in the Vault, they just already enjoy, they're already improving with the lessons, and maybe they don't care so much about why it works. So in that case, the book isn't necessary, but I think especially for people who are not in Fluent for Life, they will really enjoy this. And whether you join Fluent for Life or get Frederick or anything else, you will really know my process for how people should be getting fluent, what I recommend, this alternative way. So it's not included for Vault members. I wanted to just make this a new thing for everybody. Abhijit says, I would like to study with your book issue. Let's see. Well, if you'd like to learn more about the book, just click on the link in the description below the video. Annette says, excuse me, Drew, I'll watch a video later. Let's read what I bought. Subha says, Drew is already number 1. Yeah, it'd be cool to be number 1, but hopefully this is, if the book becomes successful and the teaching philosophy becomes more successful, I think the reason it probably is not so successful, or not successful, but not very well known, is because I have not done a good job of explaining it. So I use the method all the time, in every video, in every lesson, but a lot of people don't know exactly how I'm doing it, how I'm doing what I do. So that's what the book is for. That's the main idea, to make sure anybody else, who is a language learner or a teacher, and you can apply these ideas from the book to learning any language as well. So I would be doing that, just using these ideas to learn other languages I'm interested in, but I have to finish the book. So that's the thing I'm focusing on right now. Jin says, greetings from Vienna. Great channel. Do you have a few examples of have versus have had? I just don't get it. Look on the channel for that. You should probably find that. We also cover this in Fluent for Life. And you'll also learn, if you get the book, you'll learn more about how to take information like this, like specific questions about grammar points or whatever. I show you how to understand that in a way that actually develops fluency. So we want that idea of like, I just don't get it. Like that's, yeah, it's a very common problem that people have. Again, because they're typically learning vocabulary without really understanding it, without really connecting it to specific situations. Bridget says, hello to Teacher Drew. Well, hello. That's why you have to get a typewriter in order to give us a good book. Yes, I think it would take too long if I'm trying to write with a typewriter. But maybe once I go through the whole thing, it has kind of a typewriter feel to it. But I don't know. Maybe I have like a little bit of a beard too because I'm writing. I think my dad was asking me about that. Like I'm going to shave in a day anyway, but yeah, it's like I'm just focusing on the book as I get that done. For Your Concept says, I have downloaded more than 50 videos and I have been watching. I am a teacher myself. I, however, get help or tips from your videos. I have more than 50 on my download list. I am from Pakistan. Well, enjoy. If you know other people who would enjoy the videos too, please recommend the channel. Vincent says, I nearly missed the boat. Vincent from South Africa. Aiden says, I watch your videos every day before I sleep. Your hard word, you probably mean work, I'm guessing. Your hard work is appreciated. Well, thank you very much. Again, if you know others who appreciate or who might appreciate what I do, recommend the channel. Also get the book because that does an even better job of explaining all this than I do. So often when I'm in the middle of a live video, part of the reason I do these videos is to get just feedback from people trying out ideas or asking questions or answering lots of questions. But sometimes I will ramble. I will continue talking about things. And in the book, I'm able to really think a long time about ideas and make sure I explain them as simply and as quickly as possible. So if you enjoy what I do, you will probably enjoy the book even more. Salah says, hello, how are you? And I'm doing well. Fabio says, I missed the live. No, it's right here. Now I 100% believe in my methodology. I just need time to make my English mature for sure. Thanks, Drew from China. Awesome. What is your methodology? Or are you talking about my methodology? Let me know. Eunice says, as far as I understand, there is a method to think in English, and as long as you connect the dots, you get much closer to fluency. I want to learn this method as soon as possible. Then get the book. That's exactly what we'll be talking about, or one of the many things that we're talking about. But part of the book is my story showing you how I developed this skill of being able to think in a different language. So if you actually want to think in English, that's what we talk about, or one of the many things. But you actually see the specific steps that allow that to happen. So when you're learning more, and it's not necessarily like a native, again, as I mentioned earlier in this video, I used to tell people, just learn like a native. But when I thought about what I'm actually doing, I'm not really helping people learn the same way natives do. At least there are some parts of that that are the same, but some parts of that are not. Because often, even when people talk about trying to learn like a child, that's not really a specific thing, nor is it truly accurate. For example, a child like my two daughters are 9 and 6 years old, and they'll sometimes watch a TV show or a movie or something, and they don't understand a lot of it, but they're still watching it. They're still getting this input. People talk a lot about input and comprehensible input, which is important. But really the goal is making sure you understand that really well. You want to understand it completely. And often when children are learning things, maybe their parents are saying things and the kids don't understand it. Or again, they're watching movies or something and they don't understand all the information. So learning like a child is actually not very efficient. But the part that we do want to keep is understanding everything all in the language. And so that's really the most important part, especially if you can discover these things on your own. You don't necessarily need to do that, but the point is that you can understand something in English, and that's really the foundation of being able to think in English. So if you're, again, connecting vocabulary with situations, I know when I'm speaking Japanese, if I get hurt, I just say like, "Aita." Itai. So something hurt me. And I know that's what people say, or that's one thing people say when they get hurt. I know other ways depending on how severe the pain is. But again, those are the kinds of things you get when you start connecting vocabulary with situations, and that's how you start thinking like a native. Because you're learning like one, you're naturally doing that. So this is exactly one of the many things we'll be talking about in the book. If you'd like to learn more about that, click on the link in the description below this video to get it. Let's see. May I bait the book for free? May I have the book for free? I have a Kindle, asks Fabio. It's only available through my site. I didn't make it on Amazon or anything like that, but it's only $5. So hopefully, if you're interested in the book and you'd also like to contribute, because it takes a long time, it's a lot of work to write a book. But again, click on the link in the description to do that. Jess Winter says, so one of your English video over 19 million view. Wow, tremendous success. You deserve it. Best English teacher. Well, thank you very much. Yes, that video was also copied a lot. So I've seen like one trick to learn French, one trick to learn Japanese, one trick, like all kinds of things like that. And I don't know where I got that idea from anyway for the video, but it's a pretty simple idea. And the idea for this book is also very simple. The problem is it takes a little bit of time to explain that, just to make sure people understand everything so that we can help them think and learn in a new way. If I just start telling you things, and I mentioned this in the introduction of the book, if I just start telling you things, it's going to be more difficult for you to really change the way you learn. So if I want to give you the best results I can, I need to give you a transformation. It's not just teaching you a new way to learn. I need to really change you so that I can transform you into a much more confident speaker. So the book will take you through that process. And if you'd like to go through that, then click on the link in the description below this video. Let's see, Vincent says, I hope you make a book launch one day in South Africa, as would Fluency Guide. As World Fluency Guide, we will appreciate your touring. Yeah, maybe when I have a physical copy of the book, if it's a popular thing, hopefully it becomes that, we'll see. But it would be nice to actually go out and have a copy. I could, sign copies of the book or something like that. Let's see, and CNC says, I'd like to know, what do you think about the accent from Scotland? Are you able to understand that English? Yeah, a lot of it I can, some of it I can't. But even people living in the United States, we get, I don't know, like some people have different ways of expressing things or different words for things that are just for a particular location. So even in the United States, we have differences like that. So even in Japan, they're like, people might refer to things differently in different parts of Japan. That's just part of language. Is it possible to remember a word without remembering its meaning? Sure. It's possible to remember something in the same way, like you could remember this without knowing what it is. So it's possible to do that. But yeah, I think the problem is not just knowing the vocabulary, it's being able to recall and use that vocabulary appropriately in communication. And that's the thing people really struggle with. So often they have these lists of vocabulary that they remember, but they're not really feeling much more confident and fluent. So, okay, now it's what do we do with all this? So whether you're trying to remember the vocabulary for communication or not, that's often the difficult thing for many people. Let's see. So Wayako says, ouch, yes, ita. Bridget again, so when you are thinking, you are drawing from situations you have had. Well, it's kind of like that, but it's more like understanding what something means. Let me erase some of this over here. And again, I talk about this in the book, and so I can go into more detail and explain that when I get to those chapters about thinking in English or thinking in whatever language you're trying to learn. But the idea is not, if we begin with a translation, and then here's like in the English word, so this is, we'll just put a V up here for vocabulary, and the V over here. So this is your native language, and you're thinking about something in English. When you learn this way, you're making, it's a very weak connection to the vocabulary, and often this is for a particular situation. So you might learn in a textbook that this word means this. So for example, I might learn the word free, for example. And so in Japanese, for example, I could learn like jiu, or I could learn muryo. These are two completely different uses of free. One is like without money, and the other is like liberty, like I'm able to do something that I want to do. And so we have these meanings of free as well. But again, if I'm thinking about it like from the Japanese example, I go to the store and I want to buy like a marker like this. But like, you know, the staff is just like, hey, you can have this, like muryo. I say, wow, like you're going to give me like a free marker? Like here, I'm actually connecting the understanding of that, or using that situation to connect the idea of vocabulary like muryo, like without price, or free in that sense in Japanese, with that situation. It depends on like being able to connect things. I'm not thinking about that situation when I speak, but having had that situation, I know when to use that. So it's more like in this situation, I go to the store, they give me something for free. It's like, muryo, like ine, like I got like a free, you know, marker or whatever or something. But when I learn any time after that, when I hear muryo, I recognize that means I'm getting something without having to pay for it. So I don't need to think about the situation, but it's more like when you're thinking as a native speaker, you think about vocabulary for situations. So muryo means something doesn't cost anything. And so I don't have to think about a situation first and then try to use the vocabulary. It's just I recognize anytime there's another situation like that, I know the vocabulary to use because I learned it through the situation rather than through a translation. So again, a translation typically gives you maybe one way to use something, but there are often many different uses, especially if you have a word like I gave the example before of something like as. Now I might translate that like into Japanese in, I don't know, 10 different ways or something, depending on how we might use it. So it's like the opposite thing might be like let's say we're learning, like this is a Japanese character, the hiragana for ni. But it could mean a variety of things depending on when I use it. So the typical way you might learn it is, okay, today class, we're going to learn the word or this character right here, ni, and then we're going to try to learn a bunch of different uses of it. That's a completely wrong way to do it because humans are not computers. We're just going to confuse ourselves by learning this way. So what actually happens when native speakers are learning this, children, so Japanese children will hear like an example like koen ni iku, like I'm going to the park. And so they hear, okay, ni can be used when we're talking about going in a particular direction. And they're not thinking about it logically or consciously in that way. They're just thinking, in this kind of situation, I can use the vocabulary in this way. So it's not like every time they think about this, they think about going to the park. They just think more in these kinds of situations, and they probably get many examples like gakko ni iku, tomodachi no ie ni iku. Like I'm going like to my friend's house, I'm going to school, something like that. And so you would learn over time, you get a lot of examples of this, and it really helps you understand what something means for that situation. Okay, I want to really be clear about this. So it's not about learning ni and then how we use that in every example. It's just for this situation, that's how we might use it. So it's appropriate for that situation. Now, later they might learn an additional or many more additional uses of that same thing. So they might learn like another use of ni, which is different from, I don't know, this like example of going somewhere where we're talking about direction. But that's how they build up that understanding. So a young child might know a word, but an adult knows many more uses of that same word. But the child is like, it's appropriate for them. So the child learns it kind of for the things they need to talk about. But adults will learn it, they're learning. It's the same reason you might have in a children's movie, you would have some adult jokes, or even the same word would mean something different for adult watchers of that movie. All right. So again, it's not about me thinking about a particular situation. It's thinking, in this kind of situation, this is the kind of vocabulary I can use. All right. So you're able to check something, and you're starting to recognize patterns and learn the language more like a native. This is what actually gets you thinking in that language. So I can think in Japanese like, in this situation, I use the vocabulary like this. But I'm not thinking about it consciously. It's just like I've had so many examples of it that I understand, okay, like, iku nara ne, sochi ni iku. Like I'm going, sochi ni iku ne. But I might use like a different word when I'm talking about something else. Like I'm going in that direction. This thing feels like the most appropriate thing to use. All right. So again, I talk about this in the book. This is more like chapters 5 and 6. But again, the foundational stuff is very important to start to clear the board, to empty out the bottle, so that we can put the new information in it and really help you think about things in a new way. But these are all great questions that are making sure I'm clear about the things I'm writing. But I think like a lot of this I have anticipated, thankfully, so now I can go through and just start putting these pieces together. Eunice says, is it just $5? Yes, that's correct. Muryo was as Japanese. We use it too. I didn't know. That's interesting. It's in Chinese. It's also muryo. It's probably the same kanji. It's like mu, like nashi, like no, like nothing, and then kind of price or whatever, muryo. But I don't know the Chinese, but it'd be interesting. There are often probably many Chinese words maybe that have even the same sound, but they use the same characters often. This one says, sir, what is the best way to say, can you repeat, when you did not catch the first time? Oh, you can just ask, like, could you repeat that? Could you say that again? Or I didn't, like the things that you just said, like I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you say that again? Could you say that again? Aiden says, any other ways to get the book if you are broke? Ask someone to get it for you. Just say, hey, I'm broke. But hopefully, how are you living? You don't have $5? No, you shouldn't be that broke. Hopefully, well, I don't know what kind of phone are you using? Are you using like a $600 phone though? I know a lot of people are like, and this is an interesting thing about money, where like, they'll be on like a couple $100 phone and then wonder where their money went. And not saying that's you, but a lot of people have issues like that. Manolo says, wish to be the board just to feel you handwriting on. What? Oh my goodness. Well, I'm not touching the board itself. I'm just touching the marker over here. All right. Let's see. And CNCI, you have a big fan in your channel, so be careful if you don't want to get into trouble. I know I have to be careful. Yes, keep it PG, parental guidance, like at a movie, like rated PG, parental guidance. We want to keep it nice and professional here in the chat. Aiden says, I don't even got $1. Teach, you don't have to be sarcastic. Well, I'm sorry about that. I don't have $1 either. I've only got yen, actually. I'm joking. But yes, if you don't have any money, watch my channel. A lot of these ideas I'm still talking about. The book is just my way of of making sure I can explain everything very simply. And again, you don't have to get the book, but I think a lot of people will appreciate what's in the book. And over time, maybe people will be sharing more about it. I will talk more about the book, especially as I release new chapters. But I think people will enjoy it. But hopefully, if you can find someone who has $5 then you can get the book and you can join us. Right now, again, the book isn't even completed. This is really for people who want to join me and ask questions and talk about, like, I like this part of the book, but this part doesn't make sense or something like that. So I may have to go back and even update some things in the first few chapters. We'll see. Maybe I don't, maybe I do. I don't know. But again, that's part of the process of writing this rather than a traditional way of writing the whole book and then releasing it. Let's see. Please don't touch the board. It says CNC. Just wonders, says, sir, does YouTube send you reward for having millions of followers? Yeah, they gave me a yellow. Oh, I guess it's a gold. I mean, I wish it was real gold. It's just like a yellow. What do you call that? It's like a plaque. A YouTube. It's a gold YouTube play button thing. But it's at my friend's house, I think, because it's kind of sharp and dangerous. I didn't want it around my kids at home, so my friend has it. But I haven't seen it in a while. I don't really care about the trophy. I care about helping you guys, but yeah, I don't like have a picture of the YouTube thing in my background. Maybe I should do that, I guess. Okay, all the best. Take care. I'll see you next time. Eamon says, what's the book about? I mean, what does it focus on? Good question. So the book is basically showing people that there is an alternative way to get fluent rather than what people typically do, which is typically trying to learn a lot of vocabulary and then speak a lot, hoping that they develop fluency. So this is a very difficult process for many people, especially for those who don't have anyone to speak with. And so many of these people feel stuck, and I get questions and comments from them every day. They could be notes in email or YouTube video comments, that kind of thing. But a lot of people are saying, hey, I need to find someone to practice speaking with. And that's because they believe they need to speak with someone in order to develop fluency. But the book is called The Strangest Fluency Secret because I'm showing people that the alternative to this is actually the opposite approach, where first we actually want to develop fluency in order to speak. So I know that sounds weird, but again, that's the idea of it being a strange thing, and it sounded strange to me when I discover it, but you actually go through that process with me in the book. So thinking like, wait a minute, like, you could actually get fluent before you speak? That sounds like a weird idea. And candidly, I don't really talk about that specific idea until chapter 7. But you start getting pieces of it and thinking like, like that's interesting. Maybe it's possible. And that's what leads us through the story of figuring out this new way to learn. So what you'll also find in the book through the later chapters is many of the things that people do already are good things to do, like reading books or podcasts or even talking with AI or whatever in order to learn. But the missing piece for a lot of people is that they don't actually understand a lot of it, and that's why they struggle to speak. Emo says, how can I get the book? You can click on the link in the description below the video. And that will teach you more about the book, tell you how you can get on the kind of early, I didn't want to do like an early bird list or whatever about people who are interested. It's just, here's the book, the introduction and the first 3 chapters are available. And then you can learn more about the next chapters that will be coming up. And those should be, I want to try to release at least one of those each week. And so hopefully I can keep that pace. We'll see, but even after I finish this book, I will be sitting down again at my computer and working on the next chapter, which is the most important question in language learning. And another thing is, again, you can apply all of these ideas no matter what language you're learning, or even if you're trying to help your own children. Like if you've got kids and you're teaching them how to learn, the book will show you how to do this much more efficiently. All right, let's see. YouTube would have run out of business if it was a real gold bar. Yes, I mean, it's interesting. I think, maybe more people would work harder to get on YouTube if they were giving away gold bars. I don't know what exactly they're doing. But for the amount of revenue some people can get from YouTube, you could actually purchase a lot of gold bars anyway. It just depends on what you're doing. They're not going to just give you a gold bar, but you could do something like that. But for me, I actually get very little gold or money in any form from YouTube because I turned off advertising many years ago. So doing things like writing these books or making courses, that's how I actually earn a living from helping people learn. So I don't like having advertising on the videos, and that's why if you've probably like seen my videos and not had any ad come up before that, I can't control all of that, unfortunately. Some YouTube videos just make you watch ads anyway, which I can't control, but most of the videos do not have advertising on them in some way because I want people to learn faster. Let's see, Eamon says, I thought when you speak a lot, you're going to be fluent. So this is part of the idea, but the interesting thing, and I mentioned this in chapter 1, is a lot of people do try to speak a lot, but they still don't feel fluent. Why? And that's what I wanted to find out because I was in that situation. So living in Japan, I thought if I live in Japan, I'm around native Japanese speakers every day. I can watch, the news or movies or other things like that, but I'm still not speaking. And when you think about why is that happening and why is that happening to so many people, so people living in the United States or Canada, or it doesn't matter, they could be living in any country, but lots of people are having these same issues. So people right now, some people are already starting to read the book and they will be going through the like the chapters and reading about that. But most of the people are also in that same position. So they know a lot. Maybe they can talk also, but even if they do, again, it's trying to be specific about the things that actually help people. So for example, when we talk, like I mentioned earlier in this video, about learning like a native or learning like a child, that's not a very precise way to describe it, because we could, for example, let's say this is learning like a child. There are actually various parts of this, like learning in English is just one part of that. But how we actually get vocabulary and understand things, that's another part of that. So we can take some of these things and actually use them ourselves, but like being a child, that's not something we can use, but it's also not something that's really necessary. So again, these are the kinds of things where we're trying to be more precise with our understanding of how things work. And that's why, or another reason I thought it was useful to write a book. So another example specifically for your point here, like let's say we're talking about the idea of speaking to become fluent. So what actually happens in conversations, part of this is you repeating things you already know. So let's say I have a conversation with someone, I'm talking, I'm repeating some things, I know some of my vocabulary, and I can say I'm holding a marker. So I can say that in a conversation. That's something I already know. But another important part of conversations is, especially if we're speaking with natives, what are the things they're teaching me in the conversation itself? So I'm not really learning much by using vocabulary I already know. I already have the vocabulary, maybe I already feel confident talking about it, but I'm not really improving that much. Maybe a little bit, like if I repeat the same word again and again, my progress will go up at first and then it will plateau, because I can't infinitely learn to say a word better, like marker, 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 marker. So for example, if I'm trying to learn how to say this in Japanese, like you can see the name of it, it was like maka, maka, maka. So it's different from the English pronunciation of marker, or especially the American English pronunciation where we would have the stronger ER sound at the end of marker, marker. So we have, well, there isn't even the English on here anyway. But again, this has the Japanese katakana, hoaito boldo maka, hoaito boldo maka. So if you heard that and you recognize, like from this context, it's like, well, that's interesting, like hoaito is like the word for white, like hoaito boldo. So that's whiteboard, how we would pronounce it differently. Again, I'm trying to show that when I'm learning pronunciation, for example, as soon as I understand how to say something correctly, that's it. I'm not really improving much more. It's not really making me more fluent. But what is making me more fluent in communication is hearing how other people, especially natives, speak. So I'm in a conversation, I'm listening to how other people are using the language, and I think, oh, wow, I can use a word like that. That's interesting. Or I'm hearing their pronunciation or their movie quotes or other examples like that. Most of the improvement comes from listening to the other person talking. Okay? And because that's true, we don't really need the conversation. We just need lots of examples of this. And so again, just like we can pull out the things that are valuable from learning like a child and create our own way of learning, and over here the same kind of thing. So we can just get, just like how you're learning from me right now or in videos I make. If you have ever learned anything from me in a video and we have not met in person, that means this is true. So you can learn things from people the same way you learn things in your native language. So you don't need to be talking with the author of a book you read. You can get their ideas and actually learn and improve, just like the maybe textbook or whatever you watch a movie or something like that. That will help you understand those things, and you don't need to be in a conversation to do that. So the speaking part comes last. It could, again, this is an alternative to what people typically do. The typical thing people do, they try to learn something and then use it as quickly as possible, if they can. But often, because they don't really feel very confident about it, they don't speak very well. And so we have a problem here. We get stuck in this loop of trying to learn something, not knowing it very well, and so not actually being able to communicate very well. Okay. Here we go, but hopefully that makes sense. So again, like you can, it's not like one of these is correct and the other is not. It's an alternative to what people typically think about when they learn languages. But I talk about all this because a lot of people are trying to speak and they're still not feeling fluent. Why is that? It's because we haven't actually solved the real problem they're struggling with. All right, so that's what the book is about. All right, and if you would like to get the book, click on the link in the description below this video. Manola again, let me tell you this. Believe me or not, I learned to speak English watching your videos. I've followed you since more than 10 years ago. At this point, I can keep a conversation about any topic. Awesome. If you know others who would enjoy the channel, tell them about it. Also, get the book. You will probably enjoy it as well. Just wondering, so did your life change after becoming father and husband? Sure, of course. You know, my life changes every day, you know, for a number of reasons. But sure, yeah, after becoming a father and husband, I don't know, I don't really have anything, I guess, amazing to, I couldn't really write a book about that. I suppose I could, but, you know, I don't have like an amazing story about becoming a father or anything. But I enjoy having kids, and I'm glad I had them. Let's see, Gina says, hello, great to be live. Welcome to the party. Manola says, thanks, Drew, I'm your fan since 10 years ago. Or more, by the way. In that time, you were very young. Well, I'm still very young. What are you talking about? I am, I'll be 45 this year in September, 45. So I still feel young, although I got this beard over here. Jose says it's just $5, or is there another payment later? No, the book is just $5. That's it. And anybody who gets the book, they will get all the updated chapters, the final version of the book, the audio book, that kind of thing, when that stuff is available. Let's see. Eamon says, the same problem I have, that I always use the same words that I know, even though I know more of them, but I don't feel comfortable to use them. Exactly. And so a lot of people, they know a lot of vocabulary, they can understand when other people are talking, but they don't have that real level of certainty. And that's what we talk about in the book. All right. So again, it's a much easier, much faster, more comfortable way of learning that I think when the book becomes more popular, and I think it will, hopefully it will, but a lot of people will be able to learn, and teachers, I think, will start using these principles more as well. So it's not really a new idea. Like even people like Stephen Krashen have talked about this, but where most people stop at the idea of comprehensible input, and I talk about this in chapter 5, a lot of people, like they just think the idea is to get input. And it's like not all input is going to be helpful or even useful for you. So the point is not to just get input. We have to think about why we're getting it. And it's kind of like planting seeds. Like input is like the seeds you might plant in the ground. But we have to spend time with that. We have to give those seeds water and sunlight and things like that in order to really help them grow. And let's see. Wayako says, it's embarrassing about wrong pronounced. You should get Frederick. Click on the link in the description. The link for Frederick is there as well. But that will also help you pronounce things correctly if you'd like to do that. Ruber says, hi, Drew. I'm facing a problem with using single words correctly. For example, I don't know that get inconvenience is wrong and is inconvenience is correct. So my question is, how do I know which word should come before a word like is or gets? How do I know which one to use, which is which? Excellent question. We talk about this in the book as well. So in chapter 5, I'll be talking about magnetic vocabulary, and part of it is this kind of thing where natives, because they're not just learning individual words, they're often learning phrases and learning how to connect things and getting multiple examples of things. That's what really develops the magnetic vocabulary, so that you know what actually connects well with other things. So often natives are learning these patterns, and they're not trying to study all these individual words and then try to figure out how they work together. They're often learning things and making all of these different connections. And that's what allows you to, like when you're talking like I am right now, I'm like a train and I lay the track down as I'm driving the train forward. So I can speak and continue to think about what I'm going to say next and continue talking because my vocabulary is magnetic. I don't have just a bunch of random words in my brain and think like, well, does this word go with that one? It's like, I know they go together because I've seen them go together many times. So great question. That's another thing that we do cover in the book. But magnetic vocabulary, also the video I did last week is talking about this idea. Let's see, and Wayako again says katakana and then has the warao kanji there. Gina says, I'll start teaching English to my 2 sisters soon, and I want to do it through English, no translations. However, I'm not sure where to start since they know very little English. Get Frederick. That's exactly what it's for. Click on the link in the description below this video to do that. So if you're talking about images, could be of help, but what else? Just get Frederick. I already thought about all this. The work is already done. All you have to do is give them the app and start playing with it, like with them, and you will watch them as they discover how to teach themselves. It'll be an amazing thing. They will say, wow, I actually was able to teach myself English all in English, and it applies these same kinds of ideas that we're talking about here in the book. So just give them the link or give them the app, and you can have them do it or do it with them. Tuck says, how and when am I aware of how to get fluent? Depends on each person, though. How and when am I aware of how I get fluent? You mean how, like when you feel like you're getting fluent? Are you talking about in that moment where you understand something, or you're talking about fluency in general? I try to help people focus on becoming fluent in particular words and phrases. Again, this idea of magnetic vocabulary, which I talk about in chapter 5, like I just talked about. This is where we're really trying to help people see things holistically, and again, making connections, like instead of through a translation, we get to connect something with like a situation, and we start not just getting one example, but we get a bunch of different examples and really see how things really work well together. And this will make more sense in the book, but basically you become fluent in individual words and phrases as you become certain about them. So instead of trying to learn something and you don't really know it very well, and then we just try to say it or maybe write it or do something like that, we actually can develop certainty before we speak. So that's the strange idea. The whole idea of the strangest fluency secret is that it's the opposite of what people typically do when they try to learn. So it sounds like a kind of weird or strange thing. That's why I call it the strangest fluency secret. And for a while, I didn't believe it was possible. But as I go through the story, you will see like, this really is interesting. And the idea proves itself over time. And we got Sean with, I don't know what that's, a crying purple child or something emoji. It's really amazing. I remember, now I do feel kind of old. When I was young, we just had one emoji. It looked like this. It was just like a smiley face, and that was it. And now it's all kinds of stuff, whole pictures. You could probably teach a whole language with just emojis, I bet. Actually, we kind of do with Frederick. See you. Nice to see you live in video. And I've got IELTS score I need thanks to your method. Awesome. Very good. If you know other people who would enjoy the channel, let them know about it. Tell them about the channel. So sorry about Japanese, had arranged it. It's okay. Tuck says, I'm working from home now. Anyway, nice to see you. Nice. Good work. Britt says, Drew Badger, you are in your prime. That's right. Boom. Prime time, baby. Ganesh says, with the salute hand over there, Eamon says, I have your Frederick app, but I don't know how to use it. Watch the video. I think Frederick is tricky because it's trying to teach people how to learn a language within the language itself. So if you go back through the beginning of the app and just start playing around with it, you will teach yourself how it works. But the basic idea is you first start playing around with different sounds in each level, and that's the green little magnifying glass icon. You're kind of searching and trying to create different words. You're just looking at how different sounds are created by different letter combinations. But then you play games to test your ability, and then you can unlock future levels like that. So just play with it. I know adults are usually a bit more shy. They're waiting for a teacher or someone to say, hey, push this button or do that, but try to think about it like a video game. And we're always trying to think about better ways to improve the app and try to make that tutorial work, but just play around with it. If you're downloading the app for the first time, you will go through a short tutorial. You'll see some specific places you need to click on and try to understand how the system works, but after a while, actually it's a pretty quick tutorial, but you can go through the process and start actually teaching yourself words and using it to understand the process. So Gina says, thank you. Will do. Any recommendations to improve professional writing? It depends on the kind of writing you're working on, but the best thing to do is just get examples of good writing. And typically, when people are talking about professional writing, if you mean like professional communication for business, just try to keep it simple. You don't need to use complicated vocabulary. Often people are busy and they don't want to get lots of long emails and memos and stuff. Yeah, then people will appreciate short and simple content. So for example, there was a guy who 100 years ago named Sherwin Cody, and he wrote a course for kind of professional writing and he's giving the same advice that I'm giving you right now. So even 100 years ago, he was saying, keep it simple, really try to make sure people just understand the message. Just because it's professional doesn't mean you have to try to be complicated with your vocabulary. The same thing with me for the book. I really tried to keep the language very simple so people can understand everything easily. But again, the point is not to be complicated, it's to be clear and to be short, or really at least that we don't want to spend more time than we have to. People are busy and they don't want to spend time reading a long mail. So look at good examples of things. And even in my book, you will see very, very quick examples of things and try to think, even if you're using ChatGPT, you can still get good examples of how to take something and make it simpler. Because often people will put in way too much information. Even my book, I'm trying to keep it as short as possible, just so people can get the ideas. And it might even be useful to make it even shorter. We'll see what kind of feedback we get. But hopefully, if people are going through the first few chapters today, and I already get feedback saying people really enjoy how it works and they feel that it's working for them, that I've probably hit that right tone. We'll see. But yeah, typically just we want to be simple. That's it. Manuel says, good night, Dapper. And Eamon says, I have a problem with spelling and writing. Do you know how to improve it? Yes, get Frederick. So I built this app so that it solves a lot of these various problems like pronunciation and spelling and how to teach English and all these different things. So all of the principles that we talk about in the book, these are what I have been using for many years to teach people, but now people will understand why I built these things the way I did. But if you're looking for help with spelling or understanding the language, or if you have young kids or younger family members that you want to help them learn English with this approach, all in English, so the book will explain why we do it, but things like Fluent for Life and Frederick show you actually what it is we're doing. Anyway, I think I'm going to lose my voice over here. We've been going for 112 minutes. Oh my goodness. Wow. But always, thank you for the questions. There's a lot of good feedback so far, especially people asking me about things that I know for sure are already in the book in later chapters. I just haven't released them yet. But I'm excited to, because people have questions, especially about thinking in English, how we can actually develop fluency, and especially even before we speak. So I think people should really be excited about it. If you do buy the book, which you can find in the link in the description below this video, do let me know what you think about it. I'm really curious. I want to know, am I hitting the right targets? Are people understanding things? Do you already feel a bit more like, maybe there is a better way to learn? And hopefully, I want to be giving people hope at first that there really is a better way to do things. You don't have to be struggling. Language learning should not be that hard of a thing. And it honestly doesn't have to be. And I'll prove it as we go through the rest of the chapters of the book. All right, I think we've gotten through all of the questions over here. Eamon says, thank you. And Ruber says, I'll let you know in the comments. Thank you very much. Yes. And again, specific questions you have, these will be very helpful. I'll let you know if things are coming later in the book or if maybe I need to add some additional things like that. But I think the questions will also change as I go through the different chapters. So as people start thinking about language learning differently, they will have new questions about how to learn. Anyway, have a fantastic day. Again, click on the link in the description if you would like to be in the this kind of early list for the book. Gina, definitely get the book. I think you will enjoy it. But Frederick, especially, that will help. I think your sisters, you said. As far as helping you understand. Good night from Miami. Hello to everybody in Florida watching, anybody else. But have a fantastic day. I look forward to hearing your feedback, and I will be, as soon as I finish this, going back to work on Chapter 4. Looking forward to releasing that, so that will be the most important question in language learning, which I think people will really enjoy. Have a fantastic day. Thank you again. Whew. All right. I'm tired. All right, I'll see you in the next, in the Desert Snack says good night from Minnesota. We'll leave it there. Bye-bye.